afternoon everybody, Silvolt here, back for Transformers Review. Going to do a review of Generation 1 Bruticus. A much requested video, most recently by FDE Bozo, who did that very informative video response to my Blitzwing review concerning the original Diaclone colours for Blitzwing. Okay, bruticus is the combined form of the Combaticons, the Decepticon military unit, made up of 5 parts. The leader is Onslaught. He forms the torso, the leg joints and the arm joints. And Onslaught is he's a bit more level-headed than many Decepticons tend to be. He much prefers to use battle plans and strategies against an enemy rather than just sheer brute force. However, he does have a tendency to have a bit of a tantrum if he doesn't get his own way, as in if his battle plans go awry. And then he just goes off on one. And you do tend to need to watch out for that. Here, the space shuttle, you have Blastoff. Now, Blastoff has an appearance of being quite a nasty piece of work. But in actual fact, it's just hiding the fact that he's lonely. Because, of course, he's the space shuttle, so he can do things that the other Combaticons can't. He gets sent off on missions on his own, and so you almost feel sorry for him, because he's quite a lonely bugger. The other arm here, the helicopter, is Vortex. Vortex is the most sadistic of all the Combaticons, and as such he tends to get the role of the interrogator. So, because the Combaticons are a military unit, they would have a directive for capturing prisoners in order to get information out of them, and Vortex gets the honour of that job. You do see a bit of Vortex's sadistic side in, I think it's the Key to Metroplex, the episode in Series 3, when Swindle first steals Metroplex's transforming cog, and then Rodimus and Ultra Magnus, in the ever so cunning disguise of a different paint job, sneak Daniel and Spike into Trypticon in order to steal Trypticon's transforming cog. And Vortex, of course, very strong, picks up Rodimus Prime by his bonnet and proceeds to shake him around like a pepper pot, thus throwing Daniel out and sending him nearly hurtling to the ground and blur. The tank here, this one here, is Brawl. Brawl is, like more than a few Transformers, a loudmouth, but where with a lot of Transformers it's just bluff. With Brawl, he can actually do it. He can actually do it. He has stupendous strength and firepower, and when he starts shouting off his abilities, it's because he can actually do it. Now, he's a nasty piece of work when he gets going. The other one here is Swindle. Now, Swindle does appear to be the most friendly of the Combaticons, sorry, and doesn't seem to be that bad a bloke. But then he's a con man, and he'd sell his own mother for a quick buck if Transformers had mothers. He's a con man, so like all con men are quite charming, and Swindle's no exception. He has no regard for anybody except himself, and he's got a very mercenary nature. All he wants to do is get as much out of it as he can himself. Even to the point where in one episode he goes and sells the broken remains of the other Combaticons for spare parts. So he is a very, very nasty piece of work. Bruticus himself is a highly efficient fighting machine. For one simple reason, aside from the fact that he's so big and powerful, is that he's very single-minded. He's very single-minded. You can't distract Bruticus. If you tell Bruticus to go destroy that building, he'll go and destroy that building. Doesn't matter what's going on around him, he'll go and do it. But that has its flaws as well, because if you don't tell Bruticus to go and destroy the building, he'll just stand there and do nothing. So he's quite simple-minded in that regard. But it's that simple-mindedness that makes him so efficient as a Decepticon fighter. Now, the Combaticons first come into it in the episode Starscream's Brigade, when Starscream, in one of his bids for power against Megatron, decides that he needs a bit more help. Now, the Marvel comics give a much better indication of where they come from but even in the cartoons, unlike so many Transformers that come into the Generation 2, into the series, the Combaticons actually have a bit of a backstory in that in the cartoon they're painted as political prisoners, but in the comics they're much known to have actually defied Megatron in the early days of Megatron coming to power. Megatron promptly trounces them, has their bodies destroyed, and has their personalities put into a computer and locked away and sealed. So they're fully aware of what's going on around them, one would presume, but they can't actually do anything about it. How they don't come out gibbering and insane is beyond me. But there we go. Starscream, using World War II vehicles and a space shuttle, puts them together, and then buggers off to Cybertron and takes the personalities of the Combaticon team and puts them into the current day Combaticons that they are. But Starscream, being the sneaky git that he is, doesn't give them the ability to recharge, so they're dependent on him for their fuel, which gives them a way of controlling him. It gives him a way of controlling them, sorry. They make a bid for power, and very nearly succeed, coming to the point where Megatron actually says, Starscream, you now lead the Decepticons. But ultimately are foiled and are exiled onto an asteroid. They escape the asteroid, and then decide that they're going to destroy the Earth by sending it hurtling into the sun. After that, the Combaticons don't really do an awful lot. They come in, they come out, they flitter and faff around in the background, but they don't do an awful lot of that. And again in the comics, after they're initially created, they don't do an awful lot. In the Generation 2 comics, which was still by Marvel, I believe, they do have a slightly more involved view. They're actually destroyed by Jahaxus, and Starscream, while they're defending Warlord. And in the Generation 2, that marks an end to the Combaticons themselves. In the Dreamwave and later in G.I. Joe, they don't really do a lot. I think in the G.I. Joe crossover, the Transformers G.I. Joe crossover, they have one appearance and that's about it. They don't really do a lot. Bruticus has been, I suppose you could say, recycled more than a few times. He's had numerous recolors and actually appears and unlike any other Combiner team, actually appears again twice. He's in the alternate storyline Transformers Robots in Disguise, or Car Robots I believe it's called in Japan. Though, of course, they're renamed the Decepticons and they're called Rumination. Well, his combined form is called Rumination. With the catchphrase of Rumination, awaken! Stuff like that. You know the Robots in Disguise. It's the really comic anime thing where they all shout out the attacks they're going to do. A la Yu-Gi-Oh style. He gets a recolor in that, and his transformation is much more akin to his toy counterpart in Generation 1 than it is to his Generation 1 toy than it is to the Generation 1 cartoon. Okay, now he's had more than one repaint. Here's one of the repaints for you now. I've pulled this off TFU, and you might want to wear sunglasses. And isn't that vile? It's worse than the Generation 2 Devastator. It's like Queer Eye for a Straight Guy got their hands on him. Poor bastard to be recoloured like that. He got another. I'm trying to think now which came first. That one I've just shown you is the 2004 release. Yeah, it's the 2004 release, I do believe. Let me just double check that. No, sorry, the 1994 release. Then he got a second one in 2004 by released through Walmart, which had the same stripy colour scheme, but it wasn't using such colours that flash so badly. Like blindingly yellow for Onslaught to go with the red Swindle. His second incarnation came in Transformers Energon, where he looked extraordinarily different. He's one of the 4 giant Transformers that are guarding the Energon pool on Cybertron that Megatron jumps into to become Galvatron. The other 2, of course, would be Constructicon Maximus and Superior Maximus. And the one that's destroyed, I believe, is Defensor Maximus. It's actually another Autobot one. And Bruticus Maximus is in Energon. And the toys that were released for him are actually portrayed as a Jesselt, though in the cartoon they're not actually Jesselt, if you know what I mean. On the subject of Brawl, Brawl is in the new movie. Well, or rather, Brawl's toy line is called Brawl, though I don't actually have it yet. I haven't got around to getting it. They haven't actually released a proper Brawl in the UK yet. It's really strange, or it just so happens that the Toys R Us the last time I was in hasn't got it in. In the comics, he's called Brawl. In the prequel novel, he's called Brawl. In the film, and as in the Scripster film, he's called Brawl. But in the film itself, he's actually called Devastator. That is actually a mistake that has apparently been rectified, and on the DVD, he will be called Brawl. So he's in the movie. Another Combaticon that gets a second lease of life is Swindle. Swindle gets an alternator format, and in what I think is one of the nicest of the alternators is the Jeep format. So all he is just, there's two of these obviously, there's the yellow Swindle, and then you've got Roll Bar. You've also got Hound, but Hound's got a different head. So Swindle gets himself an alternator. In the storyline, Swindle swindles and manages to... Ooh, that's gone very stiff. Why have you gone stiff like that? There we go. Swindle manages to scam himself into getting an alternator body. And this is a very nice little toy. This is a very nice little toy. Well, I'd say little, it's not that little. If you can actually compare it to Bruticus himself, mine's a little loose. You know, he's virtually height the same. Okay, onto the toy of Bruticus itself. I'm really in two minds about Bruticus. I can't make up my mind whether I like him or whether I don't. I really can't. His head, I definitely don't like. I don't like his head. I don't know why. There's just something about his head that I really dislike. Maybe it's the colouring on him. Maybe it's the fact that he's so bland. And I know that sounds a little weird, you know, as I've just slated that other horrible colour scheme that they gave him. But I don't know. I can't make up my mind whether I like him. It has its good points and it has its bad points. The big can on the back of him is very nice. That goes on Onslaught. He's got a very big. He's got a big, suitably impression laser cannon rifle gun thing. One of the things about the Combaticons that I really don't like is, and it's evidence mostly, well, it's evidence only on Blastoff and Vortex, and I'll show you now with Vortex. I'll show you now with Blastoff. Sorry, is the hands. I've got to remember how to do this now. It's been that long since I've actually transformed either of them. Because Bruticus is one of the ones that sits on my shelf and doesn't come out to play much. I'll show you like this, right? So what I've just done with the nose cone, turn them round. That's his hands. Doesn't have hands at all. He has little flippers. That's one thing I definitely don't like about it. It just screams cheap. No, it just screams cheap and nasty the way Hasbro like to do it. Because I do actually believe that Bruticus was actually Hasbro's design. He wasn't actually one of the Takara Diaclones. On eBay, because of the fact that there's so many versions of him, he's not that expensive. He's not that expensive. I mean, admittedly, a friend of mine gave me this one, so kudos to Adam. Severely gave me a good few of his Transformers toys. And it looks nice on a shelf, I have to say. It goes well with the other combiners. And it does have an all-round fairness to it. There's just something about it that doesn't sit right with me. I don't know what it is, though. I genuinely don't know what it is. That doesn't sit right with me. I mean, it has a nice all-round bulk to it. And it looks good on display piece. And it does give you the feeling that it is Bruticus and that he is this big hard ass. I think maybe the fact that it's so square. You know, if you take the arms off, Onslaught is literally like dunk, 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 dunk. You know, it's so geometrical. It looks wrong. I'm sure everybody has had feelings at one point or another of something they don't like, but don't know why. That's it. It's a very strange one with Bruticus. You know, I mean, I wouldn't give him up. No chance would I give him up. But, anyway, I know that's just confusing, but that's honestly the way I feel. You know, I like him, but I don't like him. Okay, I'm going to sign off now anyway, because I've just spent 2 minutes rabbiting on trying to explain myself, and I've got no explanation. So for now, this is Silverbolt with Bruticus signing off, saying adios, au revoir, auf Wiedersehen.